Listen up, chums. I would say 100% stop donating right now. Who am I talking about? Well, as ever, let me explain. Morning, nice to see you. Thank you so much as ever for joining me today, and welcome one and all brand new subscribers. You know, a lot of people say to me, Neil, you attack certain things, and I don't. What I'm telling you is the stories that I find out behind the scenes. Now, when you talk about charities, right, the thing that really angers me, in the building previously where the studios that I operated out from were, on those certain floors, to give you an idea of how expensive that real estate was, the floors could be rented out anything from £5,000 to £10,000 plus a month, right? So remember, these are big floors and we're talking a tiny space, but some of these charities had their operations from that particular building. And I often used to think, well, why do they need so much space? Why do they need to be in this very luxurious area in the very heart of London, right? And there lies your problem, because you kind of look and think, there are you possibly having a coffee morning or a village fete or trying to get people to give things for that particular charity. And many, do not get me wrong, are very, very worthy causes. But behind every charity, most charities, well, there's this going on. And this is the problem, right? Well, let me explain. You will have seen these ads, right, on television over the last couple of weeks, and they've really increased, right? This is all because, of course, if you look at this is the ad from the RNLI, which is, of course, the Royal Lifeboats, etc. And many, many years ago, when you think about it, we all thought they did a sterling job. And the true volunteers, the real people at the force of the front of that particular organisation, they do an incredible job. But then, of course, there's always money to be made. If you look at any charity, as I point out, if it's a registered charity, then it's not really that much different to a business. There are certain tax breaks that you can get if you're a registered charity. The only charities, I don't mind sharing this with you, that I'm interested in are things like local things. My local food bank, I go and offer, certain bits and pieces from the food that I buy and take. But here's another thing, learn this. When you go to a food bank, be very careful about just dumping it off. I tend to sit with them a little bit to make sure that my food gets put on the table for the relevant people. Because behind the scenes, if you buy nice food, say from a better expensive supermarket, you find even some of the volunteers might siphon that off for themselves. One stupid volunteer told me this himself, made me think, watch that. Back to the RNLI, right? Now, what's interesting here is now they've just decided to get rid of 100 jobs. And not only that, when you look at where the money goes, you kind of think, well, hang on, what are we doing here? Now, look at these very plush offices, these new offices that they had down in Poole in Dorset. Why do you need such big sort of offices, right? Surely the whole operation needs to be condensed down. This is now a business. Now, part of the reason why they're having to shed jobs, and it's always the jobs at the lower end, have you noticed this, chums? Never the top level, no, always the people at the bottom end. The simple reason why they're having to shed jobs is simply this, because the donations are down, but they're paying for very expensive TV ads, but they don't pay that much money for the the ad to be shown on television, because they get a charity rate. You see how this works. Now they're pushing you to give the money from your will, sign off, if you can make a donation, all that sort of stuff. Now, where does the money go? Well, as you can see from this, many different charities. Where is it actually going? Why are we buying burqas for places in other parts of the world? Why are we not focusing on the brave men and women that are allegedly still volunteers that are going out there to truly save lives? But the whole thing has become mired in, well, disgrace, really, because basically that particular company now is seen as a taxi service for the many illegals who invade our country on a daily basis, allowed by this government, right? So people do not want to help that, and this is where this will crumble. What I'm looking at and looking into this further is, how are they supporting this then? If the donations are down far, far more, who is supporting this? Where is that money coming from? And one might suspect it's getting a helping hand from the very people that are working hard to put money into this country. You get the picture? So when you might decide, should I be keeping donating to these companies, I would hold fire. Hold fire on every single charity until you do your own research and feel, yes, this is okay. My advice at this point, if it's a local charity and a local church and a group of people that you know that are genuinely working hard for children's hospitals, knitting jumpers, getting food in there, toys, games, all that, and you can physically see that going in direct, then that's what I will be supporting. Anything else, a bigger charity, do your research and stop donating until you have. That's my advice. Neil Sean, Kensington, London.